right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to help you guys with your Canadian immigration applications because I know that can be a pretty daunting process.
Oh, yeah.
It can be really overwhelming.
It's a lot.
So many details.
Yeah.
So many places where you can trip up.
Yeah.
But not to worry, because we're looking at this really handy guide that breaks down like the top 5 mistakes that people make. And we're going to go through those so that hopefully you guys can avoid them and have a better chance at success.
Yeah. And if you can avoid those simple mistakes, it just makes the whole process so much smoother.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Totally. So much less stress, too.
For sure.
Okay. So mistake number 1. You ready for this?
Hit me.
Incorrect or incomplete documentation.
Makes sense.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like a no-brainer, right? You would think.
Right.
But honestly, even tiny little errors in your documents can completely derail the whole application.
Yeah, 100%.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And this guide actually points out some of the most common mistakes that people make. Stuff like using an outdated form, forgetting to sign something. Easy to do when you get like a mountain of paperwork, right?
Definitely. Yeah, it's easy to overlook little things like that.
Yeah. And they also really stress how important it is to go to that specific section on the IRCC website and look at the document checklist for your program. Now, have you had a chance to do that yet?
I haven't actually looked at yours yet.
Okay.
I haven't dug in, but that website, it's honestly like the ultimate authority, right? Like that's where you got to go for like the real deal information. So it's worth spending some time really digging in there, making sure you've got everything.
Yeah, totally. Don't cut any corners there.
No, absolutely not.
All right. So moving right along to mistake number 2, insufficient language proficiency.
Yeah.
And you know this is a big one
Huge.
for some folks because they're just not quite there yet with their language skills.
Yeah.
And the guide does a good job of explaining that you need different scores depending on what program you're applying to.
Yeah, like express entry versus like a provincial nomination. Those are
Right.
very different.
Totally different. Different requirements.
Yeah.
And they also mentioned the 2 most common language tests. So I'm talking about CELPIP and IELTS.
Mm-hmm.
Have you already taken one of those?
I have in the past, yeah.
Okay.
I needed to for my application.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point to bring up because you've got to make sure you're taking the right test and you're hitting that score. That's essential.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just like, can you hold a conversation?
Right.
They're really trying to figure out, can you like function in English or French, whatever language you're doing, in like daily life?
Yeah. So it's not just about knowing the language. It's about proving that you can actually use it.
Right. Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Mistake number 3 is where things get a little interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
Inconsistent or misleading information. So this is a big one because this part of the guide talks about how even like a teeny tiny little inconsistency in your application can throw up a huge red flag for the IRCC. Like, do they really go through these things with a fine-toothed comb like that?
Oh, yeah, for sure. They have these like really advanced systems that they use to cross-reference all the info that you give them and make sure everything checks out. And, you know, I've even seen cases where people got rejected because of something they posted on social media like years ago that didn't line up with their application.
Oh, my goodness. So you're telling me they were like going on Facebook and Instagram and stuff?
They're thorough.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that really underlines how important it is to just be honest and open right from the get-go.
Absolutely. Honesty is 100% the best policy.
Definitely. Okay. Mistake number 4, failure to meet program requirements.
Right.
Okay. And this is a big one because every single program has its own specific criteria that you've got to meet.
Yeah.
And this is where picking the right program that matches your situation is absolutely critical.
Right. From the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got to do your research.
You got to know what you're getting into. And the guide mentions stuff like work experience, education, and then there's this thing called adaptability factors. What in the world are those?
Yeah, so adaptability factors, those are basically ways to figure out how likely you are to successfully set up shop in Canada. Like, will you be able to make it work?
Got it.
And they look at things like, do you have a job offer already lined up?
Okay.
Do you know anybody in Canada? Have you ever like studied or worked in Canada before?
Okay.
Stuff like that. And those things basically show that you're prepared.
Okay.
And you're more likely to do...
Yeah.
To thrive.
So it's really like painting a picture of your future in Canada and showing that you've really thought this through.
Exactly.
Okay. And last but not least, mistake number 5.
Okay.
This is a biggie.
Uh-oh.
Missed deadlines or incomplete applications.
Yeah.
Like, that just sounds like a nightmare to me.
Oh, a total nightmare. Nobody wants to deal with that.
Yeah, like a universal nightmare.
For sure.
Do you have any tips? Like, how can people avoid this whole last-minute scrambling thing?
I mean, honestly, the key is preparation.
Okay.
Think of it like you're training for a marathon right now.
Okay.
You wouldn't just like show up the day before and be like, all right, I'm ready to run 26 miles.
Right.
No way. You'd be training for months.
Yeah.
So start that application early, like way early.
Right.
Get your documents together.
Okay.
Make a checklist and break the whole thing down into smaller steps.
Yeah.
So it's not so overwhelming.
That's good advice.
And for those deadlines, like literally set reminders in your phone. Don't miss those deadlines.
Oh, yeah. They're serious.
Set reminders. That makes a lot of sense. And the guide also recommends like regularly checking the IRCC website for any updates. It's kind of like checking the weather forecast before you go on a big trip.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to stay up to date.
You got to know what you're getting into.
Things change.
And it also mentions that you can get professional help.
If you need it.
Yeah.
So it's like having an experienced guide on your journey.
Absolutely. Like if you've got a complicated case, an immigration lawyer or a consultant can be so helpful.
Yeah.
They know all the ins and outs.
Right.
They can help you with the paperwork, make sure you've got everything covered, and really present your application in the best possible way.
Right. Because honestly, even like the tiniest mistake can have major consequences.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so just to kind of recap here, the top 2 mistakes that you really want to avoid are inaccurate documentation.
Right.
And not meeting those program requirements.
Definitely.
And I think the big takeaways here are you got to be prepared, you got to pay attention to detail, and you got to be honest.
100%.
If you can do those 3 things, you're already on the right track.
For sure.
But before we wrap up, I just want to leave you guys with a little something to think about.
Okay.
So the guide is great. It really lays out all the technical parts of the application process. But it got me thinking, like there's this whole bigger picture too. And it's not just about getting to Canada. It's about like where are you going to fit in once you're there, right?
Yeah, like what kind of community do you want to be a part of?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What are those things that are really important to you in terms of lifestyle, values?
Yeah, those are really important questions to think about.
Right.
Because they can help you figure out not only how to get to Canada,
Yeah.
but how to really thrive.
Right. It's not just about the paperwork. It's about finding the place where you're really going to feel happy and content.
Totally. Like
Right.
finding that sense of belonging.
Yeah. And that's something that's hard to put on an application form,
For sure.
but it's really important.
Uh,
Well, there you have it, our deep dive into Canadian immigration application mistakes.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. We've given you the top 5 to watch out for.
Definitely.
And remember those key takeaways. Preparation is key. Honesty is paramount.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
And we are confident that if you follow those tips, you can totally rock this whole process. Good luck on your journey, everybody.
Good luck.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
See ya.
Bye.